Captain Daniel Price stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and looked at the stars ahead. His ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now, exploring new worlds and mapping systems that no human had ever seen before. It was quiet work, peaceful work, and Daniel liked it that way. After 20 years in Earth's military, he had earned this calm assignment. The bridge was filled with soft blue lights and the gentle hum of computers. His crew worked at their stations, checking data and monitoring the ship's systems. Lieutenant Amanda Cole sat at the sensor station, her fingers moving across the screen as she tracked their position. Daniel walked over to the navigation console where Officer Lucas Grant was plotting their next jump. The young man looked up and smiled. "Captain, we should reach the Kepler-7 system in about 6 hours. The preliminary scans show 3 planets in the habitable zone." "Good work, Lucas," Daniel said. He felt proud of his crew. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. Most of them had families back on Earth waiting for their return. Amanda was planning to propose to her girlfriend when they got home. Lucas had twin daughters who sent him drawings every week through the communication network. The Horizon's Edge was not a warship. It had basic shields and some small defensive weapons, but it was built for discovery, not combat. The ship carried advanced telescopes, sample collection equipment, and laboratories. Its mission was simple: find new worlds where humans could live, catalog resources, and make peaceful contact with any alien species they encountered. "Captain, I'm picking up something on the long-range sensors," Amanda called out suddenly. Her voice had changed. The relaxed tone was gone, replaced by concern. Daniel moved quickly to her station. "What do you have?" Amanda's fingers flew across her console, pulling up data streams and visual displays. "Multiple contacts, sir. They just appeared at the edge of sensor range. Configuration is unknown. They're not broadcasting any identification codes or responding to our hails." Daniel felt a cold knot form in his stomach. In 3 years of exploration missions, they had encountered other species before. All of them had followed basic protocols: identify yourself, state your intentions, maintain safe distances. These ships were doing none of that. "Distance and speed?" he asked. 150,000 kilometers and closing fast," Amanda replied. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Sir, their weapon systems just powered up. I'm reading energy spikes across all their ships." Time seemed to slow down. Daniel had been in combat before, back during the wars on Earth, and he recognized the feeling that washed over him now. It was the moment before everything went wrong, when you realized that violence was coming and there was nothing you could do to stop it. "All hands. Battle stations," he ordered, his voice calm despite the fear rising in his chest. "Raise shields. Amanda, open a channel on all frequencies. Let them know we're a peaceful exploration vessel." Amanda worked quickly, sending out the message in every known language, including the basic mathematical sequences that were supposed to be universal. "Message sent, sir." No response. The alien ships were close enough now to see on the visual display. They were sleek and predatory, like sharks moving through water. Their hulls were dark gray, covered in strange markings that might have been writing or decoration. Daniel counted 8 of them, each one twice the size of the horizon's edge. "Try again, Amanda. Tell them we mean no harm. We'll leave this area if they want us to." But the aliens weren't interested in talking. Without warning, without any communication at all, they opened fire. Bright blue beams of energy lanced across space and slammed into the horizon's edge. The shields held for a moment, then collapsed under the sustained assault. The ship shuddered violently, throwing crew members from their seats. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge. Red warning lights flashed as systems began to fail. Daniel grabbed his chair to keep from falling as another barrage hit the ship. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "Get us out of here!" The pilot fought with the controls, trying to turn the massive exploration vessel away from the attacking ships. But the horizon's edge was slow, built for long journeys, not combat. The alien vessels circled around them like wolves surrounding wounded prey. In the engineering section, Lucas Grant worked desperately to keep the ship running. Smoke filled the corridors as fires broke out on multiple decks. His team ran from station to station, trying to seal hull breaches and reroute power to critical systems. "I need more power to the engines," the pilot's voice came through the communication system. "We can't outrun them at current speed." Lucas looked at his readouts and felt despair wash over him. "The main reactor is damaged. I can give you maybe 15% more, but that's it." He thought about his daughters back home, about the drawings they had sent him last week. Would he ever see them again? On the bridge, Daniel watched as another section of his ship was torn apart by alien weapons. The horizon's edge was dying, and he knew it. They had maybe minutes left before the ship broke apart completely. "All crew, abandon ship," he ordered, his voice breaking. "Get to the escape pods. Go now." The crew moved with trained efficiency, running through smoke-filled corridors toward the pod bays. But the aliens weren't giving them a chance to escape. Their weapons tracked the fleeing humans, firing at the small escape pods as they launched from the dying ship. Amanda managed to launch the emergency beacon before the next hit came. It was a small device programmed to send out Earth's location and a distress signal. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe someone would know what happened here. The last thing Daniel Price saw was the main view screen filling with white light. As the alien weapons tore through the bridge, he thought about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests. He thought about his crew, good people who had only wanted to explore and learn. Then there was nothing but heat and light, and the horizon's edge broke apart into 1,000 pieces. The alien ships circled the debris field for a few minutes, scanning the wreckage. Then, satisfied that all the humans were dead, they turned and jumped away into the darkness of space. They left behind only twisted metal, frozen bodies, and the faint signal from the emergency beacon, still transmitting into the void. 3 days passed before the rescue ship Valiant arrived. Commander Kyle Ramsey stood on his bridge and stared at the destruction spread before him. Pieces of the horizon's edge floated in space along with the bodies of the crew. Some were still in their uniforms, frozen in the moment of death. Others had been torn apart by the explosions. "Scan everything," Kyle ordered quietly. "I want to know who did this." His sensor officer, Lieutenant Grace Palmer, worked in silence. The bridge was completely quiet as the crew processed what they were seeing. Finally, Grace looked up, her face pale. "Sir, I've identified the weapon signatures. They match the Vacrian Confederacy. These were military ships, not pirates or raiders. This was an official attack." Kyle felt anger building inside him. The Vacrian Confederacy was a member of the Galactic Council, the organization that was supposed to keep peace in the galaxy. This wasn't some random act of violence. This was murder committed by a recognized government. "Recover all the bodies," he said. "Collect every piece of evidence. Command needs to see this. Earth needs to see this." As the Valiant's crew worked to gather the remains of their fellow humans, Kyle looked out at the debris field and made a silent promise. Someone would pay for this. Someone would answer for the murder of 147 innocent people. The Vacrian Confederacy thought they could kill humans without consequence. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest structure Admiral Richard Hayes had ever seen. It was a massive sphere floating in space near the neutral station of Apex Prime. Inside, representatives from 200 different alien species gathered to make decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Richard stood in the center of the chamber, his military dress uniform pressed and perfect. Next to him stood Ambassador Patricia Morris, a career diplomat who had spent 10 years working with alien species. She carried a data tablet containing all the evidence Earth had collected about the attack on the horizon's edge. Above them, holographic screens displayed images of the wreckage, bodies floating in space, twisted metal, the last moments recorded by the ship's computers before everything went dark. Richard had watched those recordings a dozen times, and each time his anger grew stronger. High Counselor Zathara called the session to order. The creature was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with a body that looked like a giant insect. Its voice echoed through the chamber with a strange clicking sound that the translation devices turned into words. "The human delegation has requested this emergency session," Zathara said. "You may present your case." Richard stepped forward. He had prepared a speech, carefully written to be diplomatic and respectful. But as he looked up at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him, he decided to speak from the heart instead. 16 days ago, one of our exploration ships was destroyed, he began. His voice was steady and clear. The horizon's edge was on a peaceful mission, mapping new star systems and searching for habitable worlds. Without warning, without any communication, ships belonging to the Vacrian Confederacy attacked and destroyed our vessel. 147 humans died. They were scientists, engineers, families. They meant no harm to anyone. He paused and gestured to the screens showing the wreckage. "We have proof. Sensor logs, weapon signatures, Communication records showing that we tried to talk to the Vakrian ships and received no response. This was not a misunderstanding. This was murder. The Vakrian representative rose from his seat. Skarath was a reptilian creature with scales that shimmered under the lights. His voice was cold and hissing. The humans lie. Our ships acted in self-defense. The human vessel entered restricted space and refused to leave when ordered. That's not true, Patricia said sharply. She activated her data tablet, projecting the Horizon's Edge navigation logs into the air. As you can see, we were in uncharted space. No territorial markers, no warning buoys, no communications of any kind. Your ships appeared and immediately opened fire. Richard watched the council members carefully. Some seemed sympathetic. Others looked bored or distracted. A few were clearly talking among themselves, not even paying attention to the presentation. Zathara raised one of its claws. The council will review all evidence. However, we must consider the context of this situation. The Vakrian Confederacy has been a member of this council for 300 years. They are a respected civilization with a long history of peaceful cooperation. Humanity, on the other hand, has only been traveling in space for 47 years. Perhaps this incident arose from human inexperience with galactic protocols. Richard felt his jaw tighten. With respect, Counselor, there's no protocol that justifies shooting first and asking questions never. Our people are dead. We're not here to start a war. We're asking for justice. We want the Vakrian government to acknowledge what they did and provide compensation to the families of the victims. The chamber erupted into noise. Hundreds of different languages filled the air as council members debated among themselves. Some seemed to support Earth's position. Others clearly did not care. The representative from the Helix Dominion spoke next. It was a floating crystalline being that glowed with internal light. Its voice was emotionless, like a computer reading data. In the scope of galactic civilization, the loss of 147 individuals is statistically minimal. The Council manages conflicts involving billions of beings. We cannot devote resources to investigating every minor incident. Minor? Patricia's voice cracked. Those were people. They had families, friends, dreams. How can you call their deaths minor? But the Helix representative had already turned away, no longer interested in the conversation. Richard looked at Ambassador Morris and saw the frustration in her eyes. They had come here believing that the Council would help them, that there was some form of justice in the galaxy. Now he realized they had been naive. The Council didn't care about Earth. To them, humanity was just another young species barely worth noticing. The debate continued for 3 more hours. Richard and Patricia answered questions, showed evidence, and made their case again and again. But they could feel the mood of the chamber. The Council had already made up its mind. Finally, Zathara called for order. The Council has deliberated on this matter. While we acknowledge that an incident occurred between human and Vakrian vessels, we find insufficient evidence to prove that the Vakrian Confederacy acted with hostile intent. Cultural misunderstandings are common when young species first venture into space. Therefore, the Council recommends that both parties engage in diplomatic dialogue to prevent future incidents. This matter is now closed. Richard stood frozen, unable to believe what he had just heard. They had shown clear evidence of an unprovoked attack. They had proven that the Vakrians had murdered their people. And the Council's response was to call it a misunderstanding and suggest a conversation. Patricia grabbed his arm. Richard, we need to go now. But before they could leave, Skarath approached them. The Vakrian representative was smiling, his sharp teeth visible. A valuable lesson for you humans, he said in a low voice. This galaxy belongs to those who have power. You are children here, weak and irrelevant. Run home and remember your place. Richard's hand moved toward Skarath's throat before Patricia pulled him back. Don't, she whispered urgently. Not here. Not now. They left the Council chamber in silence. The diplomatic ship that would take them back to Earth waited at the docking port. Richard walked through the corridors, his mind racing. Behind him, Patricia spoke quietly into her communication device, reporting the Council's decision to Earth's government. In his quarters aboard the ship, Richard sat alone for a long time. On the table in front of him, he had spread out files on each crew member who had died on the Horizon's Edge. Amanda Cole, who was 28 years old and had been planning to propose to her girlfriend. Lucas Grant, who had 7-year-old twin daughters waiting for him to come home. Daniel Price, a decorated captain who had served Earth with honor for 30 years. 147 people. 147 families who would never see their loved ones again. And the Galactic Council had called their death statistically minimal. Patricia found him there several hours later. She sat down across from him without saying anything at first. Finally she spoke. "What do we do now?" Richard looked up at her. His eyes were cold and hard. "We go home. We tell our government what happened here. And then we show the galaxy what happens when you murder humans and think there won't be consequences. The Council won't support us if we retaliate," Patricia warned. "I don't care about the Council anymore," Richard said. "They had their chance to do the right thing. They chose to protect the Vakrians instead, so now we handle this ourselves." The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Richard wrote detailed reports about everything that had happened. He included transcripts of the Council session, recordings of Skarath's mocking words, and his own recommendations for how Earth should respond. When the ship finally entered Earth's orbit, Richard looked down at the blue and green planet below. It was home to 8 billion humans, a species that had fought countless wars throughout its history. Humanity knew how to fight. They had just forgotten that sometimes fighting was necessary. A shuttle took Richard and Patricia down to the surface. They landed at the Capitol building where Earth's government met. President Alan Foster was waiting for them, along with General Christine Wade, the head of Earth's military. "I've read your reports," President Foster said quietly. "Is it really that bad?" "It's worse," Richard replied. "The Council doesn't see us as equals. To them, we're just primitives who should be grateful for being allowed in their club. They think they can let the Vakrians kill our people without any punishment." General Wade leaned forward. "So what do we do about it?" Richard met her eyes. "We show them they're wrong. We build a fleet, we develop weapons, and then we go to Vakrian space and we make them pay for what they did. We hit them so hard that every species in the galaxy understands that humanity is not to be taken lightly." President Foster was quiet for a long moment. "If we do this, there's no going back. We'll be declaring war on a council member. Other species might side with the Vakrians against us. Then we'll fight them too," Richard said simply. "Mr. President, 147 of our people were murdered. The Council called it minimal. If we don't respond, if we just accept this, then we're telling every alien species out there that they can kill humans whenever they want. Is that the precedent you want to set?" The president looked at the files spread across the table. Photos of the dead crew members, reports from their families, messages from Child. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council dismissed Earth's request for justice. During that time, humanity had been busy, very busy. General Christine Wade stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, watching multiple screens that showed construction happening all across the solar system. Above Earth, Mars, and Jupiter's moon Europa, massive shipyards worked day and night. New vessels took shape in the darkness of space, larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built before. These were not exploration ships like the Horizon's Edge. These were warships, designed for one purpose, to destroy enemies. Their hulls were covered in black armor that seemed to swallow light. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. "Status report," Christine said, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the command center. Colonel Paul Jenkins pulled up a holographic display showing the entire fleet. "We have 48 strike cruisers complete and ready for combat. 20 heavy destroyers are undergoing final systems checks. The carrier groups are all operational, with full fighter complements, and the special projects are finished ahead of schedule." Christine nodded slowly. The special projects were 3 massive ships, each one larger than anything else in Earth's fleet. They were called Ragnarok-class dreadnoughts, named after the ancient Norse prophecy of the end of the world. It seemed fitting. "Who are commanding the dreadnoughts?" she asked. "Captain Jason Crawford has the Retribution. Captain Nicole Harper has the Vengeance. Captain Henry Walsh has the Reckoning. All 3 are experienced combat commanders from the Unification Wars." Christine remembered those wars. 30 years ago, Earth had been divided into hundreds of nations, constantly fighting each other over resources and territory. The wars had been brutal, killing millions, but they had taught humanity valuable lessons about warfare. Now those lessons would be used against alien enemies. She walked to the window overlooking the command center floor. Hundreds of people worked at stations below, coordinating the military buildup. They were planning something that had never been done before, a full-scale assault on an alien civilization. "Are we doing the right thing, Paul?" she asked quietly. Colonel Jenkins was silent for a moment. They killed our people and laughed about it. The council told us to accept it and move on. If we don't respond, every species in the galaxy will think they can attack us without consequences. We'll be victims forever. And if we do respond, we might start a war we can't win. Then we better make sure we hit them hard enough that nobody wants to fight us after, Paul replied. In orbit above Mars, Captain Jason Crawford walked through the hangar bay of the Retribution. The ship was enormous, 3 kilometers from bow to stern. Its walls were lined with weapons, missile launchers, railguns, energy cannons, and things that had no name yet, because humanity had just invented them. The crew was busy loading ammunition and running final checks. Over 2,000 men and women served on the Retribution, all of them volunteers. Everyone knew what they were signing up for. This wasn't going to be a defensive operation. They were going to attack first, strike hard, and leave nothing standing. Lieutenant Sophie Bennett, the tactical officer, caught up with Crawford in the corridor. Captain, I've been reviewing the target list. The Vacrian Confederacy has 17 colony worlds and 63 military installations. We're really going to hit all of them? Jason stopped and turned to face her. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too much combat. Yes, all of them. We're going to destroy their military, burn their shipyards, and leave their colonies defenseless. Then maybe they'll understand what it feels like to be vulnerable. Some of those installations have civilians nearby, Sophie said carefully. Then they should evacuate. We'll give them 12 hours warning. After that, anyone still there made their choice. Sophie looked uncomfortable but nodded. She had lost a brother in one of Earth's wars, so she understood the price of violence. But this felt different. This was humanity choosing to become the aggressor. Back on Earth, President Alan Foster addressed a secret session of the Senate. The chamber was filled with representatives from every region of the planet. What he was about to propose would affect all of humanity, so they all needed to agree. 6 months ago, we sought justice through peaceful means, Foster began. We went to the Galactic Council with evidence, with proof of what the Vacrians did. They dismissed us. They called the deaths of 147 humans statistically minimal. They told us to accept our place as the newcomers to galactic civilization. He paused, letting his words sink in. I refuse to accept that. We refuse to accept that. Therefore, I am asking for authorization to use military force against the Vacrian Confederacy, not to conquer them, not to enslave them, but to punish them so severely that no other species will ever think about attacking humans again. The chamber erupted in debate. Some senators argued for caution, warning that attacking a council member could turn the entire galaxy against Earth. Others demanded immediate action, saying that humanity's honor required a response. The argument went on for hours. Finally, the vote was called. When the numbers appeared on the screen, the result was clear. 87% in favor of military action. Earth was going to war. In the orbital shipyards, workers loaded the final weapons onto the fleet. These weren't just conventional missiles and energy weapons. Human scientists had spent 6 months developing new technologies, specifically designed to counter alien defenses. There were kinetic kill vehicles, massive chunks of metal accelerated to nearly the speed of light. When they hit, they carried enough force to crack a planet's crust. There were electromagnetic pulse weapons that could fry electronics across an entire solar system. And there were nanite swarms, microscopic machines that could take apart a ship at the molecular level. The aliens had never seen weapons like these. They had grown comfortable with their technology, believing it was superior to anything younger species could create. They were about to learn that innovation often came from desperation. Dr. Lisa Murphy, head of Earth's weapons development program, gave a final briefing to the fleet commanders. She was a small woman with tired eyes, but her mind was brilliant. In 6 months, she had helped create weapons that would change galactic warfare forever. The nanites are your most powerful tool, she explained, showing holographic simulations. Once deployed, they spread across the target like a virus. They dismantle everything they touch, turning ships into clouds of atoms. The aliens have no defense against them because they've never encountered anything like this. Captain Jason Crawford raised his hand. How do we make sure the nanites don't spread to our own ships? Each swarm is programmed to deactivate after 12 hours. They also have friend or foe identification built into their core programming. As long as you stay outside the deployment zone, you'll be safe. The briefing continued for another hour. covering tactics and strategies. The plan was simple: hit the Vakrians everywhere at once. Don't give them time to organize a defense. Destroy their military capability so completely that they could never threaten anyone again. As the meeting ended, Admiral Richard Hayes entered the room. He had been promoted after returning from the Galactic Council, put in charge of coordinating the entire operation. He looked at the assembled captains and saw determination in their faces. "I know some of you have doubts about what we're doing," Richard said. "That's good. It means you're thinking. But remember why we're here. Remember the horizon's edge. Remember Amanda Cole, who wanted to propose to her girlfriend. Remember Lucas Grant, who had 2 little girls waiting for him. Remember all 147 people who died because someone thought humans were weak." He paused, his voice growing harder. "We're going to prove them wrong. We're going to show the galaxy that there are consequences for attacking Earth, and we're going to make sure that no human ever dies. Like that again without someone paying the price." The fleet began assembling in high orbit. 48 strike cruisers, 20 destroyers, 12 carrier groups, and 3 massive dreadnoughts. It was the largest military force humanity had ever created, and it was all focused on one goal: making the Vakrians suffer. General Christine Wade sent the final orders from the command center. Each ship received its target assignments, its jump coordinates, and its rules of engagement. They would attack simultaneously across 17 star systems, hitting so many targets at once that the Vakrians couldn't possibly defend them all. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Jason Crawford sat in his command chair and watched his crew run final system checks. Around him, throughout the fleet, thousands of men and women prepared for battle. Some were nervous, some were eager, but all of them understood what they were about to do. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Sophie Bennett announced. Jason took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Either they would succeed and earn respect through strength, or they would fail and become targets for every species that wanted to test Earth's resolve. "Open a fleet-wide channel," he ordered. When every ship was listening, he spoke clearly. "This is Captain Crawford. In a few hours, we're going to change the galaxy. We're going to show every alien species that Earth is not weak." This is Captain Jason Crawford of the Earth Defense Fleet. 6 months ago, the Vakrian Confederacy destroyed the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. They murdered 147 unarmed civilians. When we sought justice through the Galactic Council, we were dismissed. We were told our losses were statistically minimal. We were told to accept our place. He paused, letting his words sink in. We reject that judgment. Over the past 48 hours, we have crippled the Vakrian military. We have destroyed their shipyards, their bases, and their capacity to wage war. We did this not for conquest, but for justice. His voice grew harder. Let this be a lesson to every species in the galaxy. Humanity will not be victims. We will not assing. Fleet Marshal Kravix was drinking his morning beverage when the alarms started screaming. He jumped from his seat in the command center of Station Theta 9, the massive military platform that protected the Vakrian homeworld. In his 50 years of service, he had never heard those particular alarms before. They meant incoming hostile forces. "Report," he shouted at his sensor operator. The young Vakrian's hands shook as he read his display. "Multiple jump signatures detected. 20 contacts, 30, 40. Sir, they're everywhere. Ships are appearing all around us." Kravix pushed the operator aside and looked at the screen himself. His blood went cold. Dozens of unknown vessels had appeared in the system, and more were arriving every second. Their configuration was unfamiliar, but their intent was clear. Every single one was targeting his station. "Identify them immediately," he ordered. "Sir, the signatures match human vessels. Military configuration. They're charging weapons." "Humans?" Kravix felt confusion before the fear set in. The humans were weak, a young species barely worth noticing. They had no military to speak of. What were they doing here? He got his answer a moment later when the first missiles struck. They weren't ordinary weapons. They moved faster than anything Kravix had ever seen, accelerated to incredible speeds. When they hit the station's shields, the impact sent shockwaves through the entire structure. "Shields holding at 70%, his defense officer reported. "But sir, there are too many of them. We can't stop them all." Kravix activated the station-wide communication system. "All weapons return fire. Launch all fighters. Get me reinforcements from the planetary defense fleet now." The station's massive cannons began firing, sending energy beams toward the human ships. But the humans were ready. Their vessels moved with precision, dodging some shots and absorbing others on powerful shields. And they kept firing, wave after wave of missiles and energy weapons hammering the station. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Jason Crawford watched the battle unfold on his displays. Station Theta 9 was exactly as the intelligence reports had described, heavily armed, well defended, and completely unprepared for what humanity was bringing. Target their shield generators, he ordered. Sophie, deploy the nanite swarms. Lieutenant Sophie Bennett's fingers moved across her console. From the Retribution and 3 other ships, clouds of microscopic machines launched toward the station. They were invisible to the naked eye, too small for most sensors to detect. But once they reached the station's hull, they would be devastating. The nanites spread across the metal surface like an invisible plague. They began their work immediately, taking apart the atomic bonds that held the structure together. Entire sections of the station simply disintegrated, breaking down into their component elements. "Sir, we're losing structural integrity across all sectors," the Vacrian damage control officer screamed. "Something is eating through the hull. I've never seen anything like this." Kravik stared in horror as pieces of his station began falling away. It wasn't explosive damage. It was worse. The metal was just coming apart like it was dissolving. "What weapon is this?" Nobody had an answer. The humans had brought something new, something the Vacrians had no defense against. "Evacuate the station," Kravik ordered. "All personnel to escape pods. Do it now." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The Retribution had moved into position, its main weapon now trained on the station's reactor core. Jason Crawford gave the order without hesitation. "Fire." The particle beam that shot from the Retribution carried enough energy to vaporize a small moon. It struck Station Theta 9's reactor, and the entire structure exploded in a sphere of white-hot plasma. 5,000 Vacrians died in an instant. Jason watched the explosion without expression. Target destroyed. Move to the next objective. All wings proceed with Phase 2. Across 17 Vacrian colony worlds, the same scenario played out. Human ships appeared without warning, their weapons ready. They broadcast a single message in the Vacrian language. "You have 12 hours to evacuate all military installations. This is your only warning." Some colonies listened. Others, confident in their defenses, prepared to fight. The Draken shipyards were the pride of the Vacrian military. Massive orbital facilities capable of building 20 warships at once. They were protected by powerful shields and automated defense systems. The Vacrians believed they were impregnable. Captain Nicole Harper, commanding the Vengeance, thought otherwise. She led a battle group of 8 cruisers and 4 destroyers toward the shipyards, and her orders were simple: complete destruction. "Deploy EMP weapons," she ordered. The electromagnetic pulse cascaded through the shipyard systems like lightning. Every computer, every control system, every automated defense crashed simultaneously. The shields flickered and died. The weapons went silent. And the shipyard hung in space, defenseless. "Begin bombardment," Nicole said calmly. Missiles rained down on the construction bays. Explosions rippled across the facility as fuel depots and ammunition magazines detonated. Half-finished ships broke apart, their skeletal frames melting under the intense heat. Within an hour, the Draken shipyards were nothing but tumbling wreckage. On the surface of the colony world Karath, Vacrian ground forces mobilized to defend their military bases. They had tanks, aircraft, and thousands of soldiers. They believed they could repel any attack. Then the human ships descended through the atmosphere, and the Vacrians learned what real warfare looked like. Captain Henry Walsh commanded the ground assault from the Reckoning. His ship stayed in orbit, coordinating the attack while smaller vessels delivered troops to the surface. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed. Their weapons fired projectiles that could punch through concrete walls. The Vacrian defenders opened fire first, but their weapons barely scratched the human armor. Return fire was devastating. Human soldiers moved through the defenses like ghosts, appearing and disappearing, striking from unexpected angles. "Keep civilian casualties to minimum," Henry reminded his commanders. "We're here to destroy their military, not commit genocide. But anyone who shoots at you is a legitimate target." The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, every military base on Karath was destroyed. Bunkers were turned into craters. Vehicle depots were smoking ruins. The Vacrian ground forces surrendered, shocked by how quickly they had been defeated. Similar scenes played out across Vacrian space. Military installations destroyed, shipyards reduced to scrap, orbital defenses obliterated. The Vacrian fleet tried to mount a counterattack, but the human ships were too fast, too coordinated, too deadly. Admiral Richard Hayes monitored the operation from Earth's command center. Reports flooded in from every battle group, and the results were even better than expected. In just 24 hours, the Vacrians had lost 60% of their military capability. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Vacrian homeworld," a communication officer said. "It's their government. They want to negotiate." Richard's expression didn't change. "Tell them we'll talk when we're finished. We have 14 more targets to destroy." On the Vacrian homeworld, panic spread through the government chambers. High Commander Zyrath watched the reports coming in, each one worse than the last. Their military was being systematically destroyed. Their colonies were defenseless, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. "Contact the Galactic Council," he ordered desperately. "Tell them we need immediate assistance. The humans have gone insane." But even as he gave the order, he knew help wouldn't arrive in time. The humans were moving too fast, hitting too many targets. By the time the Council mobilized any kind of response, the war would be over. On the bridge of the Retribution, Jason Crawford received new orders from Admiral Hayes. There was one more target, one that would send a message the entire galaxy would understand. "Set course for the Vacrian capital system," he ordered. "We're going to end this." The human fleet regrouped and jumped to the homeworld. When they arrived, they found the remaining Vacrian military waiting for them. Every ship they had left, every defense platform, every weapon they could muster. It was a desperate last stand. It lasted 45 minutes. The human fleet tore through the defenders with brutal efficiency. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in seconds. Weapons that were supposed to be cutting edge couldn't penetrate human shields. The Vacrians fought bravely, but bravery wasn't enough against superior technology and tactics. When the last Vacrian warship exploded, Jason opened a communication channel that would broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species with a receiver would hear what he was about to say. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the most chaotic meeting in the organization's history. Representatives from 200 species shouted over each other, demanding answers, making threats, and arguing about what should be done. High Counselor Zathura struggled to maintain any semblance of order. Admiral Richard Hayes stood once more before the council, but everything had changed since his last visit. 6 months ago, he had come here begging for justice. Now he stood as the representative of a military power that had just devastated an entire civilization in 2 days. He wasn't asking for anything. He was simply here to make a statement. The Helix Dominion representative, the floating crystalline being, spoke first. Its voice was no longer emotionless. There was clear anger in its words. "The humans have committed an act of unprovoked aggression against a council member. They must be sanctioned immediately. Their military must be disbanded. Reparations must be paid, unprovoked." Richard's voice was cold. "The Vacrians murdered 147 of our people. We showed you the evidence. You dismissed it. You called our losses statistically minimal, so we showed you what happens when you ignore humanity's pain." Scarath, the Vacrian representative, was a broken creature. His government had collapsed. His military was destroyed. His people were terrified. He spoke with none of his former arrogance. "Please, the council must intervene. The humans have destroyed everything. Our colonies are defenseless. Our fleet is gone. They have to be stopped." Patricia Morris, standing beside Richard, spoke quietly but firmly. "We offered to stop 6 months ago. All we wanted was acknowledgement of what happened and compensation for the families. You refused, so we took what you wouldn't give." Zathura clicked its mandibles loudly, demanding silence. "The human actions are completely disproportionate. You killed thousands in response to the death of 147. You destroyed infrastructure worth trillions of credits. This council cannot allow such behavior." Richard smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then do something about it." The chamber went silent. Every representative understood what Richard was really saying. Earth had just demonstrated military capability beyond anything most species possessed. They had hit 17 worlds simultaneously. They had defeated defenses that were supposed to be impregnable. They had used weapons the galaxy had never seen before, and they had done it all in 2 days. The Zentari Hive's military advisor approached Zethara and spoke in a low voice that was still picked up by the translation systems. Our analysis shows the humans were restraining themselves. The weapons they deployed could have caused far greater destruction. They targeted military assets almost exclusively. If they had wanted to, they could have killed millions of civilians instead of thousands of soldiers. Zethara processed this information with growing concern. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that if we try to punish Earth militarily, we may lose. The humans fight differently than any species we've encountered. They're aggressive, innovative, and completely willing to take casualties to achieve their objectives. A war with them would be costly, even if we won. In the human delegation quarters, President Alan Foster had joined Richard and Patricia via holographic communication. The council is scared, he observed. Good. Fear is more useful than respect sometimes. What's our position? Richard asked. We stick to the plan. We don't back down. We make it clear that what we did to the Vakrians will happen to anyone else who attacks our people. And we demand full council membership with voting rights. Patricia looked uncertain. Sir, that's a bold move. They might reject it just out of principle. Let them try, Alan said. Right now we hold the power. Every species in this galaxy is wondering if they're next on our target list. Some of them are scared of us. Others are interested in becoming our allies. Either way, we're not the weak newcomers anymore. The council session resumed after a long recess. Zethara had consulted with the major powers, and a consensus had been reached. Not everyone was happy about it, but they all understood reality. The council has deliberated extensively on this matter, Zethara announced. While we condemn the scale of Earth's response, we acknowledge that the initial attack on the horizon's edge was indeed unprovoked and unjustified. The council failed in its duty to provide proper justice for the human victims. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. The council admitting error was almost unheard of. Therefore, the council will not pursue military sanctions against Earth. However, we expect that Earth will show restraint in future conflicts. Additionally, we propose new protocols for handling disputes between council members and non-member species. Richard stepped forward. Earth accepts the council's statement, but we have conditions for our continued participation in galactic affairs. Zethara's mandibles clicked with irritation. You are in no position to make demands. I disagree, Richard said calmly. We've proven we can destroy a military power in 2 days. We can do it again if necessary. So yes, we're making demands. First, Earth formally applies for full council membership. Second, the Vakrian Confederacy will pay compensation to the families of every victim from the horizon's edge. Third, we want it understood by every species here that attacking human civilians will result in the same response the Vakrians received. We will not hesitate. We will not negotiate. We will simply destroy your military capability. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Some representatives were outraged by human arrogance. Others were quietly calculating whether Earth's demands were reasonable given their demonstrated power. After an hour of debate, Zethara called for quiet. The council will vote on Earth's membership application within 30 days. The matter of Vakrian reparations will be handled through arbitration. As for your third condition, Admiral Hayes, that is simply a statement of fact. You have demonstrated your capability. It would be foolish to ignore it. Scareth sat slumped in his seat, defeated. His civilization had gambled that humans were weak, and they had paid a terrible price. As the session ended, something unexpected happened. Representatives from various species approached the human delegation. Not to threaten, but to talk. The Etherian Collective's ambassador, a being of pure energy, spoke first. Your methods were harsh, but perhaps necessary. The council has grown comfortable with injustice, believing rules apply to everyone but themselves. You reminded us that actions have consequences. A representative from the Korath Unity, a small species that had been ignored by the council for decades, spoke quietly. We've been asking for protection from raiders for years. The council always says they're too busy. Maybe now they'll pay attention to smaller species. Thank you for showing that the weak can become strong. Over the following weeks, the galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Earth was no longer the naive newcomer. They were a legitimate military power. Trade negotiations were reopened with better terms for humanity. Defense pacts were offered. Species that had dismissed Earth now sought partnerships, but not everyone was happy. Some civilizations saw Earth's actions as dangerous precedent. They began forming their own alliances, preparing for a galaxy where military strength mattered more than diplomatic relationships. On Earth, General Christine Wade met with President Foster in the White House. The fleet has returned home. We lost 47 personnel during the campaign, mostly from accidents and a few minor engagements. The Vakrians lost over 8,000. Alan nodded slowly. Was it worth it? Christine was quiet for a moment. We proved we won't be pushed around, but we also showed the galaxy that we're willing to kill thousands for justice. Some species will respect that. Others will fear us, and some will want to test us. Then we stay ready, Alan said. We keep building our fleet. We maintain our defenses, and we make sure everyone knows that the horizon's edge will never be forgotten. 6 months after Earth's attack on Vakrian space, the Galactic Council formally voted on humanity's membership application. The vote was closer than expected, but it passed. Earth would have a permanent seat in the council with full voting rights. Admiral Richard Hayes took his place in the council chamber for the first time as an official member. The seat was positioned prominently, a subtle acknowledgement of Earth's new status. When he spoke, the chamber listened. Earth comes to this council not seeking dominance but demanding respect. We will work for peace. We will honor treaties. We will contribute to galactic stability. But we will never again accept injustice quietly. If our people are harmed, we will respond. If our rights are violated, we will act. And if anyone believes we are weak because we value peace, they will learn the same lesson the Vakrians learned. He looked around at the hundreds of alien faces. The galaxy has operated a certain way for centuries. The powerful make rules that benefit themselves. The weak accept whatever they're given. That system failed when you dismissed the deaths of 147 humans. We changed that system by force. Now we're here to make sure it stays changed. His words echoed through the chamber and every representative understood. The old order was gone. A new one had taken its place, one where humanity had a voice and the willingness to use it. On Earth, families gathered at the memorial park where a monument honored the crew of the Horizon's Edge. 100,